Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Nasir Khan, and I cannot explain how privileged I feel today to actually host Matt Molloy, who does not need any introduction. Matt, how are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. I'm sort of on my first day of a bit of an adventure. But yeah, no, very, very good. Very good. And great to see you again.
Thank you so much. So, before we talk about where you are at the moment, let's talk about the journey that brought you here.
Okay, yeah. I guess if I won't go too far back, but I guess if I sort of think about how I got involved with the sort of construction industry dispute resolution, I think the initial interest was at school, and I was interested in buildings and construction, and I wanted to be an architect. But long story short, um, I don't think I had the artistic flair to be an architect, and so instead of going off to university, in the late 80s, I was brought up in London. I managed to get employment with a construction company, and they decided that I was going to be a quantity surveyor, and I couldn't resist. And I ended up as a quantity surveyor, but I worked and studied sort of day release, um, and qualified as a chartered quantity surveyor and chartered builder. And then I ended up doing contracts management as a with a contractor. Um, but I pretty quickly, I think I worked out that I didn't necessarily enjoy working for a larger organization. Um, and I was interested in starting my own business. So 30 years ago, I formed a company called MCMS. And at the time, all I was really interested in was working for myself. And I looked at various options, whether it was running a construction company or running a bar or a restaurant or just something. Um, and maybe because my father was a shopkeeper, it was maybe that sort of running your own business had an appeal. Um, and then I started the business. A former colleague was an expert witness in an arbitration, and he needed some assistance. And I ended up working on this arbitration for about 12 months.
Wow.
And the arbitrator had just recently died, and there was a replacement sort of process where I then got to see the CVs of the arbitrators, and they were sort of retired or partners of architect, engineering, QS firms, but they'd done training as an arbitrator. So that set me off on a sort of um, a journey. So I wanted to be an arbitrator, and so I then, made inquiries, enrolled in a diploma in arbitration that was approved by the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and went along there. And I was 28. One of the lecturers said, "Well, why are you here?" I said, "I want to be an arbitrator." And they said, "Well, don't take this the wrong way, young Matt, but you probably need a few more grey hairs. And but if you really want to do this, then we suggest you get yourself a legal qualification, and because you've got time on your side." And so I did that. I took on that advice. I did a law conversion course, and I was called to the bar with never any intention to practice, but I was called to the bar in England and Wales in 2001. And for those of you know your construction industry disputes in the United Kingdom, by that stage, this thing called adjudication had just really started to kick off after one of the first enforcement cases. And I think the view at the time was that adjudication was cadet arbitration. It wasn't proper dispute resolution. But that was good news for a young-ish 32-year-old who was wanting to get their dispute resolution career on. So I managed to, not at the first attempt, because I was told to go away and get a bit more experience, but the second attempt I managed to get onto nominating bodies panel, and then really just slowly build up my practice. And then I'm going to sort of go back to thinking about where I am now, as master of the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators. Well, how did that happen? Well, I don't know why I was invited to join the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators in 2004. But it was a bit like buses, because I was invited to join the Worshipful Company of Chartered Surveyors, a livery company. And then as soon as I said yes, I then got an invitation. Are you interested in joining the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators? And so I joined them both.
At the same time.
And then, I think the surveyors were first, but then the arbitrators was relatively quickly. I didn't really know what I was joining, other than it was something to do with my profession and there's London, and I fulfilled the criteria, and so I got involved. I was got involved with one of the what they call it the Court of Assistants, but it's like
Yes.
the board, if you like, or the committee. But I was involved mainly because I was helping to run the newsletter, but I didn't really have any aspirations to be master. So once you served on the court for a period of time, you come off. And then I was busy with family life, with young children. So didn't really have such an active involvement in what I call extracurricular work activities. But once the children got a little bit older, I then started to get more involved with the arbitrators. And then and then I had a call whether I would like to go back onto the court. And the second time I was asked, I then knew what it meant. It meant that potentially you would be put forward to be master, which is effectively the figurehead. And so then that, within 2 or 3 years of them being back onto the court, I was asked to put my hat in the ring to go forward to master. So that then I knew what was happening the second time round, and I accepted. I put my hat in the ring, and then I accepted the call to be master of the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators. So that's really, I think, how I got there. But I guess I had a lot more miles on the clock. I got those grey hairs that people said that I needed, and yeah. So I guess that since that sort of first appointment in sort of 2001, I guess more latterly, it's what I do is act as a third party neutral, and I've been doing this for sort of many years now.
That's very impressive, Matt, and what a journey it has been. Now, looking back, your career has spanned construction, dispute resolution, education, and professional leadership. What experiences have most shaped your approach to the profession?
I think ultimately, I'm very, very goals driven. So that must be from how I'm made and wired genetically, or how I was brought up. So I think I've got to look at my parents for that, and that period. And so if I think of what I got from them, my mother was very much, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. So her father came to London in 1937 from Northern Ireland, quite a headstrong, stubborn Irishman. So she was very much, you can do this. My father came to London in 1962 from the south of Ireland, a very gentle man, but also a very sort of proud and confident, self-assured man, but much a man of little words. But he always said to me that if you take away people's privileges, their money and their education and their clothes, ultimately they're no better than you. You're equals. And I think that's something that I've always sort of carried with me in terms of respect people for who they are, but don't be overwhelmed by them, and don't and back yourself. in terms of your ability. So I think that's probably really what shaped my approach to how I've approached most things, is that I've always thought, well, why can't I do that? And how do I get there? And what do I need to do to get there? So I think I would say that's really what has shaped my approach. It's just, a bit of nature, a bit of nurture.
That's great advice, Matt. I had a similar experience, and I was told to always recognize the 3 C's: confidence, competence, and then champion what you are doing to show that you're the best at it. Moving to your career, you've lectured and mentored countless professionals over many years. What has teaching taught you?
Yeah. I think if we think back, education wasn't available to everybody, and it's only relatively recently where, and still in certain parts of the world, it's not available to anyone. So I think the first thing, I guess, if you've had the gift of education, my father always said, he left school at 14 and went to work and came to London to work. He always is grateful for the fact that London gave his children the right, or the access to education. So I think one is to sort of think, well, okay, well, be grateful for that, and it sort of latches onto your competence point, is that you're taught. I think the thing I also sort of recall is that there are people that helped and taught me that I hold in the highest regard, in terms of their willingness to share and the willingness to help and give their time. And so I think that I always thought, well, that's a good thing, and therefore, if I have the opportunity to do that at the right time, then I think it just seemed like the natural right thing to do. It's almost like, well, somebody held out their hand to my father, who then was able to provide for us. And then you think, well, then you do the same thing and pass on that knowledge. And then you think of the some of the people, the highly experienced practitioners in the sort of dispute resolution world, who they didn't have to give up their time to teach, or teach for a relatively either not paid or very low paid compared to what they would earn commercially. They didn't have to do that. They could just carry on, but they did it nonetheless. And so I think for me, it was almost like a natural progression to do it. Then, because I actually love the job and the practice, talking about it and helping people, or sharing that knowledge is relatively straightforward and easy for me, because it's just things that I do. But it's also very rewarding in terms of then seeing those people progress. It's sort of in the same way, to a certain extent, as a parent, where you see maybe your children, or if you're a coach, where you see people, you help them, and then you almost get some pride out of their progression. So I think for me, it's what it's taught me is that teaching is extremely rewarding. I think the other thing, I suppose, is that actually there's not one size fits all, and also not everybody is suited to what they. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. So I think that's something that I've sort of seen, is sort of realizing that some of the people who are coming to courses, probably it's not the right thing for them, but I still hope they get some value in learning that it might not be the right thing for them. But I think for me, it's about, it's an element of, it's part of giving back. And it can be extremely rewarding.
Matt, you've written extensively. Why has sharing knowledge through writing always been important to you? And is there one publication that is importantly close to your heart? I've been looking at your blogs for so many years, and now at MCMS, where you're publishing bi-weekly blogs, articles, newsletters, and the recent one on Section 68 arbitration. So what's the most important one?
Yeah, I think I guess it write it down before you forget it. I think is one thing. Is for me, the again, writing about what I do or having a comment on something that interests me, I think is just I enjoy that. If you think about the job of a dispute resolver who delivers, rather, mediation is slightly different, but if you're producing a product, if you don't enjoy writing, you're in the wrong job. But the sort of, I guess it started out at sort of, academic to get qualifications. Then there was sort of blogging, and then you then got the, book and things like that, where, I think for me, there was get it down now, and therefore you can, so that the other, so it's there and people can, well, I think while it's still there, really, I think that's the way I look at it. And I guess from a commercial perspective, as a dispute resolver, we don't have clients as such. There's parties that we're involved with. So in some ways, I guess, from a commercial perspective, if we are visible and we can share our knowledge, in some ways that's part of, development of your practice, because then people can read what you're what you're what you're writing, and make a judgment as to your ability, and whether you're measured, or whether you've got that level of intellect that might be attraction. So in some ways it's part of selling. But for me, it's a case of, well, I want to write this down while I've got the energy and the know-how to actually do it.
I was looking at your book, Construction and Engineering Disputes in Adjudication, co-authored with Jonathan Coe. It is very impressive. And with your experience in adjudication, it looks like an amazing text. Tell us about it and what's coming next. I know you are writing another book.
Yeah, so what we're actually doing at the moment is, the sort of, I can't say too much about it, but it's a sort of a collection of what we've done in the past. So I'm writing it again with Jonathan Cope, my business partner. But we're looking at things that we've written before and trying to collect them together and then comment on them. But it's very much going to be in the construction industry adjudication space. And so that's very much work in progress. And, yeah. I mean, that was, to actually, in some ways, that was the product of what we've been teaching on diplomas in adjudication over the last 15, 16 years. So in some ways, it's a sort of it would be the essential reading guide, or essentially it'd be the reading that you would have if you were doing the practice and procedure and the decision writing module in a diploma or a postgraduate course. So it's very much the sort of practical, not too legally heavy, not jurisdiction specific necessarily, but it's about how you do the job. Very practical. It's meant to be a practical book and an easy to read book. It was, again, something that we were prompted to do because the blogs that we were doing with Thomson Reuters, they stopped their blogs, and we said, okay, let's now write the book, get it done, and then let's start the blogs again, which was what we've done. But we've hosted the blogs ourselves now. But yeah, I mean, that for to actually get it published was quite proud. That was a proud moment. And now we've got the bug. We're going to carry on, and there's more to come.
That's, again, very important to share the knowledge. Moving on to the subject of the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators, many of our listeners may not know much about the company. What is it? What role does it play today? And why does it remain relevant?
Yeah, I mean, we're So the arbitrators we're a city livery company, City of London livery company. So the ancient livery companies have been around for hundreds of years. We're talking 600, 700, 800 years, and in broad terms, liveries were almost like a guild. If you wanted to work in the city under a particular trade, you needed to effectively get a license from the master of the livery company. So the original livery companies would have been the mercers, which were the merchants, the grocers that sold and dealt in goods. The post Second World War, really, the City of London Corporation said, well, the livery companies don't necessarily represent what the City of London does now. Now it's more about professional and financial services. And so there was a bit of a swell of what you call modern companies. And by modern, it means post First World War. So we're talking, in the last sort of 108 years. And so there were surveyors, architects, engineers, bankers, insurers. The Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and the London Court of International Arbitration said, we need a livery company of arbitrators. So the purpose of the livery company is effectively you represent your trade or your profession or your industry as an ambassador, and you promote it within the city. But the livery movement is really about collegiality, fellowship, and also charitable and educational endeavors. So effectively, you're a member of the arbitrators because you have a connection with now it's private dispute resolution in the City of London, and as master, I am the ambassador, if you like, for the arbitration in the city to make sure that people know what arbitration and dispute resolution is. And then as a company, we try and promote or encourage people to come into the private dispute resolution space, and through education, but also we provide a sort of collegiate and fellowship environment for people who work in that area. So in terms of relevance, we're relevant because we do what we say on the tin, other than the fact that mediation didn't exist 26 years ago in formal sense. So now we include mediation and basically non-court dispute resolution in our sort of in our body of members, basically. So very, very relevant. And it's across a bit like the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, really. But we don't formally qualify and train people. It's more a case of we promote arbitration and or private dispute resolution in all its forms.
I did not know that your journey with the company began back in 2004. That's a long period of time. And as you explain, the relevance of the company. Now, as master, what have been your priorities for the company? And what would you like us members to remember about your year as the master?
My key theme was two-way learning between the older, more experienced, and the new and less experienced. And so trying to bring those, or that collective knowledge, trying to bring it together and learn from each other without being threatened. So I think often there's a bit of an us and them. The older sort of generation or more miles on the clock might be threatened by what's happening in terms of the new way of doing business, and vice versa. The newer members or entrants feel like, oh, it's just that old network and we're never going to break in, and they're all old fashioned and they don't welcome us. So for my theme was to bring those closer together. I would like to think at the end of the year, as master, members of the company will look back and say, we feel closer as an organization. Big, and we are, there's that two-way learning. And I think that those bonds and friendships, I think, that have developed, I'd like to think, over the year that I will have been master.
Matt, people have shadowed you, you've mentored them, coached them, guided them. Having witnessed the evolution of the construction industry over several decades, what changes have had the greatest impact, for better or for worse?
I think for me, um, there seems to be a lack or a reduction in investment in on the job training, apprenticeships, and that type of feature in terms of construction, either operatives, trades, but also professions. And for me, I think that's a real shame. I think it's a very practical industry. I also think that we're not all, we're not all cut out for the desk, or we're not all cut out for using our hands. And I think for me, there are certain people that will benefit more from on the job training rather than being scooted off to full time education and then being introduced to the industry at a later stage. And for me, I think that's a great shame. I think we are crying out for skilled operatives and professionals, and then we're then seeing people are coming out of further education, then out of jobs, which it just doesn't make sense for me, because I think I think that just I think it's a real shame. I think there's a bit of joined up thinking where companies were incentivized to sponsor and bring on people from an earlier age and to do, qualify. So still lifelong learning, but qualify whilst they're on the job. And that for me, I think I think that's a real shame. I think we've lost a lot of trades and professionals. And also that I think it's affected I think it's affected the quality in some ways.
I agree, and this has become a real challenge. There are many graduates coming out of university who are struggling to find work. I just met a civil engineering graduate at the Guildhall, and he said he was still struggling to find any graduate jobs. And at the end, he decided that rather than being jobless, he's going to go and pursue a master's. I mean, that's a good thing that he's developing his education and competency, but his view and the risk that he was mentioning was he doesn't know what will happen. And this is the issue around a lot of new graduates with the advent of artificial intelligence. It's changing every profession, not just construction, legal, all professions are being affected, for better or for worse, as I mentioned earlier. So, where do you see the greatest opportunities, the greatest cautions for us in the industry, not just dispute resolution, but overall across the construction sector?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think about AI, and I've had this discussion a few times. Is that, are we going to lose that next generation of junior, whether it's lawyer or professional? I think AI, it's got. I don't think it's restricted just to the legal profession, but yeah, people are using AI increasingly. I think the answer is I don't think we are going to lose necessarily. We might need less, perhaps, of juniors, but I think what we are going to have is people who know how to use AI in a more efficient and effective way. So I think for me, there's we can do things better and more efficiently, create value. The concern is that what we'll do is that we will. How are we going to verify? How are we going to train the newer entrants to verify what the output is from AI? And I think that's I think if you know something, you're an expert in your field. When you see something that comes out, you go, I know that's not right, or that doesn't look right, it doesn't smell right, and so then you'll interrogate that. But I think that if you haven't got that ability to spot something doesn't smell right, then there's the danger.
And competency is a very, very vast subject. And we've been talking about it for a long time across all industries, especially in construction, post Grenfell, the Building Safety Act, etc. In your view, what qualities distinguish a truly outstanding professional?
I think that it's the person who is has got a curious mind, but independent and not complacent. So, and I think that the ability to just question things in a curious way, and therefore then go, okay, fine, yes, now rather than just accept what comes out and just say pass that on and say, yeah, okay, that's good enough. So I think there's somebody who's, if you're not complacent, you will um, you will not be happy with the first pass. And I think that for me enables you to always stay on your toes. And I think the for me those professionals who never rest on their laurels, never think they've made it. I think if they got that point where they don't think they've got more to give, or they've reached their best performance, then that's the time to stop. I think because it's downhill from there. So I think there's people who are always thinking, yeah, I can do better, and I'm going to raise my game, and I'm going to learn more. And I think that for me is that's just always constant development. And I think if you've got the hunger for that, then you will just get better and better and better.
I think continuous professional development, experiencing different things becomes relevant to all industries. Now, I'm going to come to the most important point. I know where you are at the moment in Exeter on your way to Land's End. And this is where, away from your professional life, you're preparing for an extraordinary challenge. Many people do not know that you've been a professional swimmer, a triathlete, and you've been a swimming coach for a number of years, and you've coached at a very high standard and at a very high level. So tell us about this extraordinary challenge that you are about to begin.
I think a part of that's goals driven. I mean, I've always been, I just love sport and I love the challenge. So, um, yeah, I mean, I, I do not compete anymore in terms of swimming and triathlon that I sort of did. I stopped trying to be quick about 12 years ago. Um, but it suits my mindset in terms of having a goal, something that's challenge, and then, yeah, okay, now I'm just going to, how do I achieve that? And it's the way I approached my career from, I started work at 18 and I knew that it was going to take 5 years before I could effectively qualify. So I had to be patient and just go through the stages. That's very much like a 5-year plan for a competition cycle. Swimming was Olympic sport, so it was a 4-year cycle, and you just worked. You worked year on year for a period of time, and similarly to those sort of longer challenges, you do different races, and you'd have a sort of a 2 or 3 year, 4 or 5 year plan in terms of what you were going to do, and you'd be built towards it. So yeah, very much the that mindset was there. And I guess I think there is quite a high correlation between people who have some kind of success in sport and success in other areas of their life. And I think it does attract a certain type of person. I think I talked about the fact of not being complacent, and never really satisfied with that performance. They then need to do better. And I think I think that's part of some people's DNA. And I guess I'm probably afflicted with that to a certain degree.
So this is part of your master's challenge.
So my master's challenge with the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators is to cycle from Land's End which is at the end of Cornwall, to John O'Groats, which is at the top of Scotland. So it's about 1,000 miles, setting off 2 days' time. And so I'm en route to Land's End at the moment, stopped off in Exeter, which is about a halfway point from London. And I'm driving down, or my wife's driving, and I'm sort of preparing. But yeah, we're going to set off in Thursday morning. But yeah, over 12 days of cycling, we're going to do about 1,000 miles. And yeah, so it's something that I needed something that would get me out of the weekends to do some exercise that would give me, I think, as I get older, I think more conscious of mental and physical well-being. This is a significant enough challenge to make sure I get out and do some training. So I needed something to get me away from the desk and force me to do some exercise and put the pen down. And this has definitely done that.
This is by far more than cycling or just a physical challenge. There is a cause behind it. Tell us about the message that you want to give, and what are you hoping to champion through this journey?
Yeah, so there are two main charities. There's the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators Charitable Trust is in place to sort of provide for a range of different sort of charities. So half of the money will go to the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators Charitable Trust, but half of the funds are going to go to an organisation called Solving Kids Cancer, and that's got a bit of a personal or almost personal connection. So my colleague Cassie, a lot of people will know Cassie Lever. So she unfortunately lost her daughter at 6 to a neuroblastoma. And she since then has done so much work, and she's involved with the board to help families who also have children with the particular the similar issues to her daughter Jossie that she lost. So for me, it was seeing the incredible work that she does. It was just thought, well, that for me was, it just gave me a purpose, and again forces me out there. And we've set a target. We're doing really well, and yeah, I mean it. I'd imagine there's going to be some hard parts, and things like that will help me get through. But ultimately, I think we can do. We can make a difference and help people. And seeing the work that, say, she and her husband do, it's incredible. But it costs, and and it needs charitable endeavours for people to actually deliver the support that's needed for people in that situation.
You're being joined by amazing company, but not throughout the route. So out of the 12 days, how many days are you cycling on your own?
I think there'll be three of us the whole way. So hopefully, so past master Simon Underwood is going to join me, an old friend of mine, Tony Paul, who I know from my triathlon days. But then there's other people who will. So Jonathan Cope is joining for the first 3 days. There's a chap who's joining us for day 3 and 4. And so yeah. So hopefully,
I really pray and hope that for the amazing cause, both for the Worshipful Company of Arbitrators Charitable Trust and also for the Children Cancer Charity, we get the funds that you have aimed for, and hopefully more. Hopefully more. Finally, just coming back to, in terms of concluding sense, one piece of advice that you would offer to the next generation entering our profession.
let's assume that you've qualified in your primary profession, and let's just hold that thought, because I think dispute resolution doesn't exist for dispute resolution's sake. It provides a service to commerce and other areas. So I think let's assume that you've qualified and become proficient in that profession. Then the advice will be make haste slowly. And I think there's an element of what I mean by that is it's a lifelong journey.
Not just because our podcast is called Common Sense, Not So Common. It also is very important to learn from Matt Molloy, you know, what does common sense mean to you?
It's interesting. When I heard the title of your podcast, I couldn't help but think from my father-in-law. He's no longer with us, but that was one of his sayings about common sense not being that common. Normally, after he'd seen someone do something less than sensible, I think for me it's the why do you put a baby on a glass table with a black outside and a glass on the other, and the baby won't go on the glass side? That's common sense. It's that ability to know innately without any specialist training that I got to do that. That looks dangerous. So I'm not going to walk on what appears to be. I didn't know that was glass because I've only been starting to toddle. But I don't put my hand on the glass side because I think I'm going to fall. I'm going to hurt myself. So that for me is that.
Brilliant. On that, Matt, I know you've had a very long journey to Exeter. Have great rest. And then tomorrow, I know you're off to Land's End. And then Thursday, your journey begins. So be safe, have great rest, and best wishes and good luck from all of us.
Great. Thank you, Naz. Lovely to see you and speak to you. And and thank you for all your kind words.